back, Will. I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech on a given Thursday morning. We're talking about community matters here, and we're talking about rebuilding the economy with agriculture with an old host of ours and an old friend, Matt Johnson. Thank you so much for coming around, Matt.
Right on, Jay. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Well, let's talk about you. Let's talk about Oahu Fresh. You make a significant contribution by finding a way to connect agricultural pieces together, especially in COVID. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Jay. So Oahu Fresh was started a little over 10 years ago, basically as a way to connect home consumers to all the amazing locally grown products. We have the farmers markets, but sometimes they can be challenging for people to get to, especially during times like COVID, when a lot of the farmers markets had to shut down. And so really it's an online platform where we have over 100 local vendors where they put up their products, everything from papayas, cage-free eggs, ground beef from Kulo Ranch, to prepared, ready-to-eat foods. So we really just want to make it as easy as possible for both the producers to be able to move their products, and then also for home consumers to be able to purchase those products. So we offer island-wide delivery, and so that's what we've been working on for the past 10 years.
That's great. Are you kind of like a co-op? I mean, compare yourself to a co-op.
We're not exactly like a co-op. It's more like a buyer's club, I guess, is probably the closest way to describe it. Where if you become a member of Oahu Fresh through our website, you subscribe to either weekly or every other week delivery option. We have different pickup locations, but as also mentioned, we have the home delivery as well. And so you subscribe to different packages that we have, ranging from $20 to $35. And you can do a variety of just produce, or you can also do meal kits where we kind of put in the recipes, try to make it easier to make at-home meals using locally grown ingredients. And then we also recently started doing meal boxes. So these are actually fully prepared, cooked, ready to eat vegetarian meals.
No kidding.
So make it as easy as possible.
I saw an ad on television last night with some mainland operation doing that. You pay $6 a meal, $36 for 6 meals, and you get a big box delivered to your door, and it has all the elements you need to make the meal, including the spices, every little thing you need in the kitchen to make the meal. Are you doing that?
Yeah, so we've adopted a lot of different models similar to that, just kind of pulling different pieces that we feel work for the type of ingredients that we have. So we do have, we call it like our vegetarian meal kit box. So we'll have 6 to 7 items from different farms, and then we have an in-house chef that will prepare a recipe using those ingredients in the produce box, and then they'll put in the other ingredients such as the spices, or maybe you need flour, all with the intent of, if you get a box of produce, we want the customers to be able to get the most value out of it as possible. So if they're able to make it into a really good meal, then we've succeeded.
Just as a matter of personal household curiosity, how can I order this stuff from you? Where do I go?
Yeah, so it's all through our website, oahufresh.com. And if you sign up today, you can get your first order delivered to you next week. And we have over 1,000 items on our online marketplace, and it's we're building it out every day. And that's one of the things that we saw and kind of predicted with COVID, especially as people start losing, people are losing their jobs or looking for other side gigs. A lot of times people, especially here in Hawaii, go back to food. So we're seeing a lot of new products, new people getting into the market with different homemade products that maybe it's a family recipe. And so we really try to encourage that and create opportunities for them to sell their products.
I don't know why, but I'm reminded of a client my firm used to have. He was into food, and then one day he went into dog food and became a multi-millionaire with dog food. Which, on occasion, that's more profitable than food.
Yep, there's some dogs out there that are eating better than you and I.
So if I'm one of your suppliers, one of the farmers would have you supplying, or one of these, fellows who, who designs a product, wants to put it in the marketplace, food product, Can I sell to others, or am I limited to selling only to you under this program?
No, we're definitely not limited to, any of our vendors to just selling on our platform. Our platform is nice, but it's not the end all for any one business, and we wouldn't want to be in that position. That's just not really the best way what we're trying to do. We're really trying to, support, these producers as much as possible. And so the Oahu Fresh platform is just one avenue that they can use. There's other similar platforms. FarmLink is another very similar platform. Kahumana Organic Farm has a similar platform. There's the Ulu Co-op based out of the Big Island that has something similar-ish, but they're focusing mostly on ulu as well as other starches such as kabocha and taro.
What's your special sauce? What I mean is, how do you compete in the marketplace? What special sauce do you have that makes people want to come to see you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we try to make it as easy as possible. So we've been doing this for over 10 years now. So we have a really diverse mixture of products. Really fascinating things. Like I said, every week we have new things going up there. And then also too, really moving towards, it's kind of like the farmer's market model in a sense that you go to a farmer's market, there is, you can go and buy your produce for the week, but then there's also prepared, ready to eat food. And really, I think that's what people are looking for, that combination. So when you're shopping, yeah, you want to get your staples for the week, your eggs, your coffee, your fruits, but also having something ready to eat, kind of maybe take care of dinner for that evening, makes things, you know, that much more enjoyable of a shopping experience. So
I
that's
was,
really what we try to do.
I was telling you that in my brief reading on this, I found that number one is Big Island is the most agriculture of all the islands, which is an interesting question about how you get it from the Big Island to Oahu, how that transportation happens. But the other part is, it's mostly fruits and vegetables, and we do have a substantial pipeline of fruits and vegetables. What we don't have in Hawaii is locally grown protein. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean there is a diverse and growing, um, I guess movement to try and get more locally raised protein, and I mean it's a challenging industry. And back in the day, there was the amount of cattle that was being raised and slaughtered here on island for local consumption was a lot larger than it is today. So the logistics of being able to raise cattle all the way to preparing it for slaughter, and then actually the process of slaughtering it. So that's one of the kind of challenges that's been in the paper recently, both Civil Beat and Star Advertiser. I was talking about some of the challenges with the slaughterhouse that's based here on Oahu, where it has new ownership, and so a lot of like the local ranches are worried that their products, that their needs for their herd to be slaughtered and processed as needed may not be met with the current slaughterhouse. So I know there's movement to try and figure out how to get more slaughterhouse resources throughout the state. Big Island, has a couple of their own slaughterhouses. But yeah, it's a rough, tough industry. What's been interesting to see though, coming out of from Maui and Molokai is venison.
Hmm.
Venison is a fascinating product in that it's invasive, extremely invasive um, animal that does a lot of damage to whether it's crops being grown on Molokai or Maui, also on Lanai. So it's an invasive. So a few producers over there had figured out how to get USDA approval to actually um, go and hunt wild deer. And this is very significant where, typically this is not allowed. That's, we're not able to process wild boar, but the trick with the venison is what they figured out is to be able to get USDA approval that there's very strict guidelines on how they can shoot the wild deer. I believe it has to be a headshot. I think they can only hunt them at night. So I think it's one of only two operations in the country that's able to do that. I think there's another operation that is shooting wild bison, possibly in New Mexico. I'm not exactly sure where, but a very unique product. And we've been working with the Molokai Livestock Cooperative and bringing some venison over and kind of testing it out. I know there's also companies out of Maui that are doing some dried deer jerky products. So that's really neat to see. Um, and you also have groups like Local IA that are working with fish. So trying to, sometimes they're working with trying to get invasives out, but trying to get sustainably raised fish more onto restaurants menus as well as direct to homes as well.
Yeah. You talk about restaurants, and that's, I remember that before COVID, it's harder and harder to remember things before COVID. Honestly,
Right.
it's such a long time ago, so different the world. But the big push then was that the restaurants, and there was some of them, I don't know if they were all in business by the time COVID hit, but they were looking for organic, they were looking for looking for local produce, and finding it. Again, the big issue, as I recall, was to find a continuous, reliable supply.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you were involved in helping provide a continuous, reliable supply. Because if you're ordering X units for your restaurant and you can't get X units, you're going to take it off the menu, and then
Right.
that closes Hawaii agricultural down. So the question is, before COVID, were you involved, were others involved in providing the continuous supply? Were the farmers able to provide a continuous, reliable supply?
Yeah, so we've been involved working with restaurants, and you're right. You explained it really well. The challenge is that if you're a restaurant and you have a menu and it says that you're going to have tomatoes from the North Shore on your menu, and then for whatever reason, like the rains that we just had, pretty much throughout the entire past month, um, if you're a small tomato farmer, it's hard for you to be able to have a product, consistently throughout the year. So then you have to go back to that restaurant and say, hey, sorry, we don't have the tomatoes that you needed. So it kind of works twofold. On the restaurant side of things, there's restaurants that understand that and work with those challenges. Guys like Ed Kenny, with the town restaurant and Kamuki Superette, they understand that and they built that flexibility into their menus. So that's part of what needs to happen for the restaurants that really want to say they buy and support local. They have to understand that. But on the supply side of things, another project I've been involved with is local food hubs. And food hubs are getting a lot of attention right now, and are basically aggregation, storing, and distribution points for locally grown products. So instead of just working with that one, might be a small farmer from the North Shore, the food hub will have a variety of tomato suppliers. So then that if the food hub is working with the restaurant, just if one supplier of tomatoes goes down, hopefully there's another supplier from a different part of the island or another part of the state that we're able to keep that consistent supply to that restaurant.
When you have that, then sometimes you have an excess. Am I right? And the excess, has to go somewhere. You don't want to let it stay out and rot. So query, what do you do with the excess if there is one? What do the farmers do? And does it get to the homeless? Does it get to the disadvantaged and the poor?
Yeah, and ideal, and this comes down like an entire, food supply, food system, right? And you're absolutely right. We're dealing with perishable products. Sometimes the products that are harvested, we've probably heard of ugly produce before, where it may not be pretty enough to either go to a store or maybe even go to a restaurant. So that's why we need to have a really robust um, line of value add products. So basically that just means, some kind of processing. So if we have excess tomatoes or, ugly looking tomatoes, that there needs to be products that we can use those products for, like making like a salsa or making a tomato sauce. And that's where we're seeing a big push to try and really build out more of these type of products. So you're absolutely right. And it's another point where, food hubs can jump in and hand and help out with is by having these certified commercial facilities, having different entrepreneurs that are there ready and waiting for those type of products that can come in. Um, but even beyond that as well, then having the relationship too with the food banks. And we saw a lot of that during COVID. There was a lot of locally grown products that were going to the food banks that were then making their way into the food box distributions that were happening throughout the state. And then even beyond that, then there needs to be proper composting facilities for products that maybe even go beyond the ability to be used at a food bank. So it's really having that full system, that full vertically integrated process in place is really what would make a local food system work robustly.
So is it increasing? I mean, in the 10 years you've been involved, what's the dynamic? Up, down, sideways? How has it been going in terms of production and distribution?
Honestly, I think it's always kind of like an up and down curve, but I would say moving upwards in the sense that I think there's a overall higher demand and interest on the market side of things, and the market is constantly changing on the production side of things. We're seeing some new players come into the market. Mahipono over on Maui came in and purchased a lot of the old A and B sugar land. So they're really looking to make some moves into the markets. Yeah, as I mentioned too, on the protein side of things, there's still a lot of challenges with that. I mean, a lot of opportunity, but we need to have that basic infrastructure that's in place so that when there's cattle that's ready to be slaughtered, you know what's what how is the step by step covered from when we get that herd all the way to a final finished product that's on the market shelves.
Yeah, complicated, lots of regulation involved.
Yeah, lots of regulation, but we're seeing a lot more interest on the growing side of things too, where you have the Go Farm program out of University of Hawaii. That program's been around for about 8 years now, and they're doing a fabulous job of, I believe every year, maybe twice a year, they have a variety of different cohorts, and these are individuals who want to get into growing. They want to learn the ABCs of how to do it. So it's a great program where they give you a little plot of land and they show you how to till it, how to plant the seeds, how to harvest, and all the way through the business planning part as well. So the interest is there on the growing side, but there's still, the barriers to entry are significant. Um, Jay, if you and I wanted to go and start farming right now, finding an appropriate piece of land would be very challenging, especially here on Oahu.
Well, it's funny that my walking buddy this morning, we were talking about this, and he's familiar with somebody who wants to buy a farm. And so the question is, how do you buy a farm these days? If I wake up one morning, Matt, and I want to buy a farm, as you say, there are challenges, there are obstacles to buying a farm, staffing a farm, getting it ready, and technology, setting up a market, all that. There's a million issues. It's one of the most complex business you think about from a startup entrepreneurial point of view. So what are the challenges in getting the land, buying the farm, starting up as a agricultural startup?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of challenges. Just finding a plot of land. I mean there's finding the land. That's the one thing to contend with, and then the integrity of the soil. That's another thing to consider, especially a lot of the land that's still in ag land previously was in sugar or pineapple production. So historically, there's been a lot of different pesticides used in the soil. So the integrity of the soil, and then also access to um, appropriate water or irrigation. That can be extremely hard and expensive to get access to. Having road access. You need to be able to get your trucks in and out. You need to get your employees in and out. Being able to put up proper facilities, whether it's anything from bathroom facilities to washing facilities, um, even having a place for you and your employees to live. Being able to live on the property can be challenging. Um, Hawaii Ag Research Center, HARP, did a really cool project out in Kunia where they took over some former sugar plantation homes, Kunia Village, And basically what they've done is they became almost like a real estate company where they're offering these homes for farm employees at really discounted rates. So it's really it's that whole system of where do you get your workers from? Where do you get your water from? We haven't even
Don't
spoken about
forget
power.
energy. Don't forget energy.
Yeah, power is another huge issue. Um, one of the issues they ran into, the state has their project with the Ag Development Corporation, where they purchased a big chunk of land in central Oahu, the Gulf State lands, and unfortunately, the water that's available is extremely deep. So it takes a lot of power to be able to pump the water up to have it available for irrigation needs. So yeah, and that's just on getting started, and we haven't even spoken about the financing. How do you get the financing for these kind of things? A lot of times, to be able to get onto ag land, you need to have so many years experience farming. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg. It's like, well, if I can't get on the ag land, how do I get experience farming? So that's what's nice about the Go Farm program in terms of getting that experience. You can use a certificate from Go Farm program in lieu of actually having those years of experience farming. So yeah, a lot of challenges, but not impossible. There's people out there doing it, and you just have to be very creative.
Well, from a policy point of view, it befits us all to have local agriculture for sure. I'm sure you've been wedded to that notion for a long time, for your whole career. And so the policy challenge is to get people doing it, to get them to mount those challenges and have the fortitude to deal with every single one. And I guess I guess it starts out with getting the land. A lot of land is available. Some landowners want to hold on to it forever and ever to make condos there. They're not interested in doing agriculture and so forth. So the question really, and it's a really big question, is what can the state do? What is the state doing to incentivize, these young people out of school, maybe out of Sitar, who knows something about agriculture or who want to know something about agriculture, to incentivize them to, give them grants and loans and whatever it takes to buy the land, to buy and do and learn and organize as they need to do. Money is important. Are there incentives? What are they? Are they enough? Do we need more? I guess I'll follow up with that.
Yeah, that's definitely a big question, Jay. So, I mean, one of the things, I mean, there's a lot of different areas we could go into, but one of the things that I know a lot of energy is going into is, the state has a lot of power in, the products that it purchases. So, there's a lot of energy with, farm to school programs, farm to prison programs. So if the state is able to figure out along with many different organizations, how to make it easier for the state to purchase locally grown products. This is another chicken and the egg type dilemma, but one of the things that'll be very helpful is if Jay, if you and I were going to go into farming, one of the most powerful things that we could have would be a long-term contract to supply a certain amount of product over a certain amount of time. If we had some kind of a contract like that, that really opens up our ability to go out and get finance. So that's one of the things that I think the state could really help with. Yeah.
Well, also remember that the largest landowner in the state is the state, and
Yep.
if the state is not willing to give you a lease that lasts long enough for a bank to fund, your startup costs, you're stuck. I think a lot of farmers can't go because they don't have the money to buy it, and if they get a lease, it's a short-term lease, and the bank won't lend them anything on a short-term lease.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it kind of goes back to that fully. A lot of times we like to look at a problem at just one point of the problem matrix, I guess, and it really has to look at it from seed to table. So the state does have some agricultural parks through the Department of Agriculture and also the Ag Development Corporation, and these are supposed to be land available for people to start farming on. and it's a very challenging process to get on there. One, it's limited access, um, and yeah, there's just kind of limited resources going towards that. So if there's a more robust system for people that want to get on farming, um, you know, we should hopefully have a system in place where we can make it as easy as possible. If you've got, a business plan and you have interest, we need to make it as easy as possible for people to get on the land and start farming.
Yeah. I remember also there was a thing called the Important Lands Initiative. It was a statute, and it was intended to incentivize agriculture. And the owner of the land had to designate the land as agricultural, and the designation had to last for a certain period of time, and you get certain benefits out of designating your land as important. Do you remember that program? And is the program still in existence? Has it been effective?
Yeah, the important agricultural lands. Haven't really heard too much about it recently, but yeah, it was like how you described, where if you had your property, this is mostly for the larger landowners. I know like Alexander and Baldwin took advantage of the program, I believe on Maui, where they're able to take some of their land that's designated as important ag land. So the incentive was to basically give up some of the development rights, and then they would just receive a cash disbursements for the value of those rights, and basically they would bank that land and to keep it into agriculture into perpetuity. Or they'd be able to transfer their development rights from one piece of land to another piece of land. So it's a much more complicated process than I'm describing, and I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really heard much about it recently, but that's kind of generally what it was used for, as a way to get the development rights out of that important ag land and keep it into agricultural purposes.
Man, I suggest that we should do a lot more to incentivize agriculture, not only at the farm diversified level, but at the larger level with larger crops, which we aren't doing for some reason. I mean, we talk a good game, but I think the important lands statute could be tuned up to work better. I think I saw something in the paper about how there were 6 grants given out for $250,000 each to agricultural entrepreneurs. 6. That's it. 6. We need hundreds. We need to blanket the state with agriculture, diversified agriculture. And it was a great loss that we lost the ferry. I don't know if people were thinking but the ferry, the most valuable aspect of the ferry was moving produce between the islands. This would have been huge for agriculture. We don't have that. So I guess what's top of your wish list here to blanket these islands with agriculture? What should the state or the counties do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the county is, the county and the states, they're trying, and they have people, at the legislature and within the different government departments that are becoming more and more aware of the problems. Dexter Kishida, who's at Honolulu County, he has a lot of experience and understands the challenges of getting locally grown food into the Department of Education. So it's nice having champions like him within government that understand the challenges. And I think that's kind of the first step, is just putting out blanket statements like, yeah, we're gonna get more food locally grown, or more food into Department of Education. You just have to have more understanding of every step along the journey from seed to the final plate. There's significant hurdles to get over. So I think having more local champions, more just listening and understanding what the farmers really need, and then also making sure that any grant programs, any incentives, um, actually do make their way to the actual farmers. Um, there's farmers who you know want to continue to grow, but just had a conversation with a farm up on the North Shore that's been around, this second generation farm. They've been around since the 90s, growing a variety of beautiful products, and they're having a tough time on whether or not they're going to be able to continue. The price point for their products, is just too high for the market to bear. So figuring out how do we bridge that gap is no insignificant challenge.
Yeah, I'm reminded by your comment about Hamakua Farms, Richard Ha
Mhm.
in Hamakua, the Big Island. He was farming for a long time, very smart guy, really knew how to make best practices and all that. Was an important farmer, gave it up, closed down. Really too bad, you know. We have to keep him in business and people like him.
Yeah, and also guys like Dean Okamoto with Nalo Farms. These are the guys that have been around from the beginning of really pushing buy local. And so to me that's kind of the canary in the coal mine or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah,
We start seeing guys like that that aren't able to continue. It's disconcerting.
yeah. So you talked earlier about COVID and how our initial discussion here was about how COVID had changed things.
Mhm.
And I'm sure it changed Oahu Fresh. Can you talk about that? What did you do a pivot? What was the pivot? How did that work, and how did it benefit you and the community?
Yeah, so I mean, COVID was, as bad as it may sound, it was really kind of a shining moment for locally grown products. Um, there were definitely the farms or the distributors that had challenges that weren't able to pivot. If they were heavy on supplying to the restaurants or hotels, if they weren't able to pivot, then they struggled significantly. For us at Oahu Fresh, it wasn't so much of a pivot as a tremendous growth. Before COVID, we were doing about 100 deliveries a week. At one point, about 3 months into COVID, we peaked at about 1,500 deliveries in a week.
Wow.
Uh, so it was, as you can imagine, stressful, but also very exciting in the sense of that kind of startup mentality. So we were able to really kind of expand upon a lot of the initiatives and things that we've been wanting to do for a while. We now finally had some more capital and also a larger customer base to start doing more things with. So able to hire more staff. So we hired at least 12 staff during COVID. We had to purchase some more refrigerated vehicles, brand new website, and really trying new products. Um, and also doing more education. We have a Instagram TV show now with Chef Andrea, who's cooking and demonstrating how to use different locally grown products in the kitchen. So it was real exciting, and also too with the food box distributions, they're buying a lot of product from local farms, and actually sometimes it was hard to find enough product for all the different programs that were happening, and this came from uh, direct funding from the county, groups like Ulupono that were directly funding nonprofits to purchase locally grown products for food box distribution. So that was exciting to see. Now we're kind of in that lull in between, I guess, CARES funding. So a lot of those programs have slowed down, and I think waiting to see what's going to happen, if anything, with this next set of stimulus funding that's going to be coming through. But yeah, a lot of pivoting is happening, and it was a nice injection for buy local, locally grown products. I know for myself, I was reinvigorated, saw a lot of promise and excitement around what we've been working so hard on, and a lot of other organizations and farms I know are feeling the same way.
Oh, great. One last question, um, and that is, how do you see the future? I mean, is this sustainable? The success you had serendipitously in COVID. Where are we going with this, and where is Oahu Fresh going with it? What do you see over the next few years, or is that unknowable?
Yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur, and especially for an industry like local ad, you always have to be thinking and creating, and you can never just kind of sit back and say, okay, we're done. Because as an entire system, if the entire system doesn't work, then no individual business or farm is really going to work. So for Oahu Fresh, yeah, I'm definitely, I guess, bullish for our future. and that we're positioning ourselves in a way to try and work and support as many different producers as possible. So we just created a platform that's available for any farm, any producer that wants to take advantage of it. On the market side of things, we're constantly trying to get feedback from our customers and pivot on what they're really looking for. That's why we're really moving more towards the prepared food. Having more longevity of products is really important, and seeing a lot of energy around that. As I mentioned, kind of value-add processing, but there's whole challenges involved with that. My good friend Lauren Shoup with Ulumana creates a really delicious ulu hummus, but one of the challenges is shelf life for the product. Right now, he has about 3 weeks shelf life for the product. So if he's trying to get that into places like Whole Foods, Costco, commissaries, that challenge is, getting the product on the shelf and moving it. If it doesn't move, then he has to take that product off the shelf himself. So there's talk actually through the state about bringing in, I don't know exactly the name, it's a hyperbaric type chamber product that basically pumps in a lot of pressure into these products, giving it a much longer shelf life. So, having the infrastructure to support entrepreneurs to really grow their products throughout Hawaii and even beyond is real important. So excited to see that, and also the development of larger food hubs is, I think, real important. Aggregating, processing, and distributing at larger scales is something that I'm going to be working on for the next, a long time to come. So yeah, so I'm very positive. Just like I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but overall, I think it's moving in the right direction.
One other question you provoked me to ask, and that is, Hawaii was built on agriculture. I mean, we exported our agriculture. We're not doing much of that now. But the ad I saw for the 6 meals, that was from the mainland company in a box. And it had, appropriate shelf life to last the time of the trip. And I wonder if you see in the future for Oahu Fresh or anybody in this industry here in Hawaii to create a box and ship it to the mainland, thus exporting our agriculture, just like in the old days. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's already companies doing that. I'm actually going through like the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement is putting on like a local food system accelerator program called Kohana. And there's a couple companies in there that are looking to do the exact same thing that you mentioned, where they want to put together a local tea and honey subscription box that then they're able to ship, all over the world. So these are using, products that have longer shelf life. So yeah, absolutely. And I think it's inevitable, and I don't know if us at Oahu Fresh will be doing that ourselves, but definitely seeing other groups looking to do that, and yeah, a lot of opportunity for that. One thing you mentioned, I'll say quickly, talking about the ferry. I remember going to a HART meeting where they're talking about the rail, and I brought up the idea of, well, wouldn't it be great if farmers on the west side could put boxes of produce on the rail and ship it into Honolulu. Our current warehouse is actually going to be right by one of the rail stations in Kalihi. And everyone just kind of laughed at me. They thought it was a joke. And I wasn't joking. I thought it was a really good idea.
It's a great idea. It's a wonderful idea.
And so hopefully, we just get everyone kind of thinking, going back to thinking about Hawaii as an agricultural state. Whatever resources we have, how do we, help agriculture at the same time?
In a way, it's all, what you're doing is all altruistic in its own way and for the community, and we should all appreciate you for that. Matt Johnson, Oahu Fresh, thank you for joining us. It's great to touch base with you again. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you so much, Jay.